Welcome to Midnight Mystical Storytime. Tonight we open the old books and listen to the stories that still hum under the surface. Songs that travel, tunes that will not be forgotten, and the quiet music that lingers long after the last note. Settle in, the hour is late, the fire is low, and the stories are waiting. First up, the song that traveled. One day, when all the world was gay with the spring, a king stood at the window of his palace and looked far out on his kingdom. And because his land was fair to see, and he was a young king, and his heart was happy, he made a song for himself and sang it loud and merrily. The hawthorn's white, the sun is bright, and the blue cloudless sky, and not a bird that sings in spring is happier than I, is happier than I. Now it chanced that a plowboy at work in a field hard by the palace heard the king's song and caught the words in the air of it. He was young and happy, and as he followed his plow across the dewy field, and thought of the corn that would grow by and by, and the furrows it made, and of his little black and white pig that would feed and grow fat on the corn, he sang, "The hawthorn's white, the sun is bright, and the blue the cloudless sky, and then not a bird that sings in spring is happier than I, is happier than I." "A right merry song, Robin Plowboy," called the goose girl, who tended the farmer's geese in the next field, and she leaned on the fence that divided the two, and sang with him, for she was as happy at last as ever lived in the king's country. The farmer's wife had given her a goose for her very own that day, and the goose had made a nest in the alder tree. There was already one egg in it, and soon there would be more. Then she would send them to market, and when they were sold she would buy a ribbon for her hair. It was no wonder that she felt like singing. The hawthorn's white, the sun is bright, and blue the cloudless sky, and not a bird that sings in spring is happier than I, is happier than I. The chapman, from whom she bought her ribbon in all good time, learned the king's song from her, and as she trudged along the king's highway with his back upon his back, he too sang it, for there is no better weather for peddling or singing either than that which comes in the spring. A soldier, just home from the wars, and glad enough to be there, had the song from the chapman, and in turn he taught it to a sailor who took it to sea with him. The sailor was going to the far countries, but if all went well with his ship and with him, he would be at home in time to see the hawthorn bloom in his mother's yard another year and another spring. He kept the song in his heart for a year and a day, and then because nothing had gone amiss and he was homeward bound, he sang it too. The hawthorn's white, the sun is bright, and blue the cloudless sky, and not a bird that sings in spring is happier than I, is happier than I. On the sailor's ship there was a minstrel bound for the king's court to sing on May Day, and the minstrel learned the song from the sailor. He was a young minstrel, and very proud to sing at the king's festival, till when it was his turn, and he stood before the throne, he could think of no better song to sing than "The hawthorn's white, the sun is bright, and blue the cloudless sky, and not a bird that sings in spring is happier than I, is happier than I." Now the king had been so busy about the affairs of his kingdom, deciding this question and that, sending messengers here and there, and listening to one and another, as all kings must do, that he'd forgotten the song which he'd made. But when he heard the minstrel, it all came back to him, and then he was puzzled. "Good minstrel," said he, "10 golden guineas I will give you for your song, and to the 10 I will add 10 more if you will tell me where you learned it." "An easy matter that," said the minstrel. "The sailor who rides in yon white ship in your harbor taught it to me. The soldier who even now stands guard at your majesty's gate gave me the song," said the sailor when he was asked. "I had it from the chapman who travels on the king's highway," said the soldier. "I heard the little goose girl sing it," said the chapman when they found him. "'Tis Robin Plowboy's song," laughed the goose girl. "Go ask him about it." "The king sang it first, and I next," said the plowboy. Then the king knew that he had made a good song that everybody with a happy heart might sing, and because he was glad of this, he stood at his window and sang again. "The hawthorn's white, the sun is bright, and blue the cloudless sky, And not a bird that sings in spring is happier than I, is happier than I. That was the song that traveled by Maud Lindsay. Now we move to the wonderful tune. Maurice Connor was the king, and that's no small work. Of all the pipers in Munster, he could play jig and reel without end, and the Ollestrom's march, and the eagle's whistle, and the hen's concert, and the odd tunes of every sort of kind. But he knew one far more surprising than the rest, which had in its power to set everything, dead or alive, dancing. In what way he learned it is beyond my knowledge, for he was mighty cautious about telling how he came by so wonderful a tune. At the very first note of that tune, the shoes began shaking upon the feet of all who'd heard it, old or young. It mattered not, just as if the shoes had the ague. Then the feet began going from under them. Then at last up and away with them, dancing like mad, whisking here, there, and everywhere. Like a straw in a storm, there was no halting while the music lasted. Not a fair, nor a wedding, nor a feast in the 7 parishes round was counted worth the speaking of without blind Maurice and his pipes. His mother, poor woman, used to lead him about from one place to another just like a dog. Down through Ivory, Maurice Connor and his mother were taking their round. Beyond all other places, Ivory is a place for stormy coasts and steep mountains, as proper a spot it is as any in Ireland to get yourself drowned or your neck broken on the land, should you prefer that. But notwithstanding, in Ballinspilly Bay there is a neat bit of ground, well fitted for diversion, and down from it towards the water is a clean, smooth piece of strand, the dead image of calm summer sea on moonlit night, with just the curl of the small waves upon it. Here it was that Maurice's music had brought from all parts a great gathering of the young men and the young women, for 'twas not every day the strand of Trafraska was stirred up by the voice of bagpipe. The dance began, and as pretty a dance it was as ever was danced. Brave music, said everybody, and well done. When Maurice stopped. More power to your elbow, Maurice, and a fair wind in the bellows, cried Paddy Gorman, a humpbacked dancing master who was there to keep order. "'Tis a pity," said he, "if we'd let the piper run dry after such music, 'twould be a disgrace to Ivory, that didn't come on it since the week of 3 Sundays. Though as well became him, for he was always a decent man. Says he, did you drink, piper? I will, sir, said Maurice, answering the question on the safe side, for you never yet knew piper or schoolmaster who refused his drink. What will you drink, Maurice? Said Paddy. I'm no ways particular, said Maurice. I drink anything barring raw water, but if it's all the same to you, Mr. Dorman, maybe you wouldn't lend me the loan of a glass of whiskey. I've no glass, Maurice, said Paddy. I've only the bottle. Let that be no hindrance, answered Maurice. My mouth just holds a glass to the drop. Often I've tried it sure. So Paddy Dorman trusted him with the bottle. More fool was he, and to his cost he found that though Maurice's mouth might not hold more than the glass at one time, yet, owing to the hole in his throat, it took many to fill it. That was no bad whiskey neither, said Maurice, handing back the empty bottle. By the holy frost, then, said Paddy. 'Tis but cold comfort that there is in that bottle now, and 'tis your word we must take for the strength of the whiskey, for you've left us no sample to judge by. And to be sure, Maurice had not. Now, I need not tell you any gentleman or lady that if he or she was to drink an honest bottle of whiskey at one pull, it's not at all the same thing as drinking a bottle of water. And in the whole course of my life, I never knew more than 5 men who could do so without being the worst. Of these, Maurice Connor was not one, though he had a stiff head enough of his own. Don't think I blame him for it, but true's the word that says, when liquor's in, sense is out, and puff, out of breath, out he blasted his wonderful tune. 'Twas really then beyond all belief or telling the dancing. Maurice himself could not keep quiet, staggering now on one leg, now on the other, and rolling about like a ship in a cross sea, trying to humor the tune. There was his mother, too, moving her old bones as light as the youngest girl of them all, but her dancing, no, nor the dancing of all the rest, was not worthy the speaking about to the work that was going on down up the strand. Every inch of it covered with all manner of fish jumping and plunging about to the music, and every moment more and more would tumble out of the water, charmed by the wonderful tune. Crabs of monstrous size spun round and round on one claw with the nimbleness of a dancing master, and twirled and tossed their other claws about like limbs that did not belong to them. It was a sight surprising to behold. But perhaps you may have heard of Father Florence Conry, a pleasant man as one would wish to drink with on a hot summer's day. And he had rhymed out all about the dancing fishes so neatly that it would be 1,000 pities not to give you his verses, so here they are in English. The big seals in motion, like waves of the ocean, or gouty feet prancing, came heading the gay fish. Crabs, lobsters, and crayfish, determined on dancing, the sweet sounds they followed, the gasping cod swallowed, 'twas wonderful really, and turbot and flounder, mid fish that were rounder, just caper as gaily, John Dories came tripping, Dale hake by their skipping, to frisk it seemed given, bright mackerel went springing, like small rainbows winging, their flight up to heaven, the whiting and haddock, the left salt water paddock, this dance to be put in, were skate with flat faces, edged out some old places, but souls kept their footing, sprats and harries in power of silvery showers, all number out numbers, and great ling so lengthy was there in such plenty, the shore was encumbered, the scallop and oyster, their two shells did roister, like castanets flitting, like limpets moved clearly, and rocks very nearly, with laughter were splitting. Say that 3 times fast. Never was such a hullabaloo in this world before or since. 'Twas as if heaven and earth were coming together, and all of Maurice Connor's wonderful tune. In the height of all these doings, what should there be dancing among the outlandish set of fishes but a beautiful young woman, as beautiful as the dawn of day. She had a cocked hat upon her head, from under it her long green hair, just the color of the sea, fell down behind without hindrance to her dancing. Her teeth were like rows of pearls, her lips for all the world looked like red coral, and she had a shining gown pale green as the hollow of the wave, with little rows of purple and red seaweed settled out upon it. For you never yet saw a lady under the water or over the water who had not a good notion of dressing herself out. Up she danced at last to Maurice, who was flinging his feet from under him as fast as hops, for nothing in this world could keep still while that tune of his was going on. And says she to him, chanting it out with a voice as sweet as honey, I'm a lady of honor, who live in the sea, come down, Maurice Connor, and be married to me. Silver plates and gold dishes you shall have, and shall be the king of the fishes when you're married to me. Drink was strong in Maurice's head, and out he chanted in return for her great civility. Not every lady may be that would be after making such an offer to a blind piper. Therefore, 'twas only right in him to give her as good as she gave herself. So says Maurice, I'm obliged to you, madam, off a gold dish or plate. If a king I had had 'em, I could dance in great state. With your own father's daughter, I'd be sure to agree, but to drink the salt water wouldn't do so with me. The lady looked at him quite amazed, and swinged her head from side to side like a great scholar. Well, says she, Maurice, if you're not a poet, where is poetry to be found? In this way they kept on at it, framing high compliments, one answering the other, and their feet going with the music as fast as their tongues. All the fish kept dancing too. Maurice heard the clatter and was afraid to stop playing lest it might be displeasing to the fish, and not knowing what so many of them may take it into their heads to do to them if they got vexed. Well, the lady with the green hair kept on coaxing Maurice with soft speeches, till at last she over-persuaded him to promise to marry her and be king over the fishes great and small. Maurice was well fitted to be their king. If they wanted one that could make them dance, and he surely would drink, barring the salt water, with any fish of them all. When Maurice's mother saw him with that unnatural thing in the form of a green-haired lady as his guide, and he and she dancing down together so lovingly in the water's edge through the thick of the fishes, she called out after him to stop and come back. Oh, then, says she, As if I was not widow enough before, there he is going away from me to be married to that scaly woman. And who knows but 'tis grandmother I may be to a hake or a cod. Lord help and pity me, but 'tis a mighty unnatural thing. And may be 'tis boiling and eating my own grandchild I'll be, with a bit of salt butter, and I not knowing it. Oh, Maurice, Maurice, if there's any love or nature left in you, you come back to your old mother, who reared you like a decent Christian. Then the poor woman began to sob and cry so finely that it would do anyone good to hear her. Maurice was not long getting to the rim of the water. There he kept playing and dancing on as if nothing was the matter, and a great thundering wave coming in toward him, ready to swallow him up alive. But as he could not see it, he did not fear. His mother it was who saw it plainly through the big tears that were rolling down her cheeks. And though she saw it, and her heart was aching as much as ever mother's heart ached for a son, she kept dancing, dancing all the time for the bare life of her. Certain it was she could not help it, for Maurice never stopped playing that wonderful tune of his. He only turned his ear to the sound of his mother's voice, fearing it might put him out in his steps, and all the answer he made back was, "Wished with you, mother, sure I'm going to be king over the fishes down in the sea, and for a token of luck and a sign that I am alive and well, I'll send you in every 12-month on this day a piece of burned wood to Trafalgar." Maurice had not the power to say a word more, for the strange lady with the green hair, seeing the wave just upon them, covered him up with herself in a thing like a cloak with a big hood to it, and the wave, curling over twice as high as their heads, burst upon the strand with a rush and a roar that might be heard as far as Cape Clear. That day, 12-month, the piece of burned wood came ashore in Trafalgar. It was a queer thing for Maurice to think of sending all the way from the bottom of the sea. A gown or a pair of shoes would have been something like a present for his poor mother, but he had said it, and he had kept his word. A bit of burned wood regularly came ashore on the appointed day for as good, aye, and better than 100 years. The day is now forgotten, and may be that is the reason why people say how Maurice Connor has stopped sending the luck token to his mother. Poor woman, she did not live to get as much as one of them, for what through the loss of Maurice and the fear of eating her own grandchildren, she died in 3 weeks after the dance. Some say it was the fatigue, but whichever it was, Miss Connor was decently buried with her own people. Seafaring people have often heard off the coast of Kerry on a still night the sound of music coming up from the water, and some who've had good ears could plainly distinguish Maurice Connor's voice singing these words to his pipes. "Beautiful shore with thy spreading strand, thy crystal water and diamond sand. Never would I have parted from thee, but for the sake of my fair lady." And that was The Wonderful Tune by Andrew Lang. And we move on. To Song in a Minor Key. Beneath him the clovered hill slope was warm in the sun. Northwest Smith moved his shoulders against the earth and closed his eyes, breathing so deeply that the gun holstered upon his chest grew tight against his strap as he drank the fragrance of earth and clover warm in the sun. Here in the hollow of the hills, willow shaded, pillowed upon clover and the lap of earth, he let his breath run out in a long sigh, and drew one palm across the grass in a caress like a lover's. He had been promising himself this moment for how long, how many months and years on alien worlds. He would not think of it now. He would not remember the dark spaceways or the red slag of Martian drylands, or the pearl-gray days on Venus when he had dreamed of the Earth that had outlawed. So he lay, with his eyes closed and the sunlight drenching him through, no sound in his ears but the passage of a breeze through the grass and a creaking of some insect nearby. The violent, blood-smelling years behind him might never have been. Except for the gun pressed into his ribs between his chest and the clovered earth, he might be a boy again, years upon years ago, long before he had broken his first law or killed his first man. No one else alive now knew who that boy had been, not even the all-knowing patrol. Not even Venusian Ural, who had been his closest friend for so many riotous years. No one would ever know now, not his name, which had not always been Smith, or his native land or the home that had bred him, or the first violent deed that had sent him down the devious paths which led here to the clover hollow and the hills of an earth that had forbidden him ever to set foot again upon her soil. He unclasped the hands behind his head and rolled over to lay a scarred cheek on his arm, smiling to himself. But here was earth beneath him, no longer a green star high in the alien skies, but warm soil, new clover so near his face he could see all the little stems and trefoil leaves, moist earth granular at their roots. An ant ran by with waving antenna close beside his cheek. He closed his eyes and drew another deep breath. Better not even look, better to lie here like an animal, absorbing the sun and the feel of the earth blindly and wordless. Now he was not Northwest Smith, scarred outlaw of the spaceways. Now he was a boy again with all his life before him. There would be white columned house just over the hill, with shaded porches and white curtains blowing in the breeze, and the sound of sweet familiar voices indoors. There would be a girl with hair like poured honey, hesitating just inside the door, lifting her eyes to him, tears in the eyes. He lay very still, remembering. Curious how vividly it all came back, though the door had been ashes for nearly 20 years, and the girl. He rolled over violently, opening his eyes. No use remembering her. There had been that fatal flaw in him from the very first. He knew now. If he were the boy again, knowing all he knew today, still the flaw would be there, and sooner or later the same thing must have happened that happened 20 years ago. He had been born for a wilder age, when men took what they wanted and held what they could without a respect for law. Obedience was not in him, and so, as vividly on that day as it happened, he felt the same old surge of anger and despair, 20 years old now, felt the ray gun bucking hard against his unaccustomed fist, heard the hiss of its deadly charge ravening into a face he hated. He could not be sorry, even now, for that first man he had killed, but in the smoke of that killing had gone up the column house and the future he might have had, the boy himself, lost as Atlantis now, and the girl with the honey-colored hair and much, much else besides. It had to happen, he knew. He being the boy he was, it had to happen. Even if he could go back and start all over, the tale would do the same. And it was all long past now, anyhow, and nobody remembered any more at all, except himself. A man would be a fool to lie here thinking about it any longer. Smith grunted and sat up, jerking the gun into place against his wrist. And that was Song in a Minor Key by C.L. Moore.
The hawthorn's white, the sun is bright, and blue the cloudless sky. And not a bird that sings in spring is happier than is happier than I. It left the window, caught the breeze, a plowboy sang it through the trees, and the song went walking. It pulled the world along, made the stones start dancing, made the silence sing its song. Everything that heard it had to move and sway. The song that traveled would not stay. The big seals in motion like waves of the ocean, crabs and lobsters prancing came, heading the gay fish, determined on dancing. The sweet sounds they followed, all outnumbered. The song that traveled had them all encumbered. The first voice is gone now, the window stands bare, but somewhere the melody still hangs in the air. and the song keeps walking. It pulls the world along, makes the stones start dancing, makes the silence sing its song. Everything that hears it still must move and sway. The song that traveled will not stay. The hawthorn's white, the sun is bright, and still it travels on.
And so the songs travel on. This has been Midnight Mystical Storytime from SL Tonight. Thank you for listening in the quiet hour. Meet again when the next tale is ready. Until then, keep the old stories close. Good night.